Yeah, I was scared. Because at first it was some 9-picture contract, and if all of a sudden you're not responding well, too bad. You got to suit up again. That was scary.
It's sad not to be back with the band, but I'm sure they're going to do something incredible, and I'm sure it's going to be that much harder when it comes out and you feel like you weren't invited to the...
For the longest time, superhero movies were bullshit. Do you meet up before you commit to a role? Do you ever say, like, I want to meet Captain America and find out what the fuck that guy's really like?
It's almost terrifying to think about these being done.
The level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to a set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive.
When Marvel unveiled the first look at Doctor Doom, the world was told it was witnessing history, a rebirth of the MCU, a chance for Disney to prove that after years of shaky mistakes, they could rise again. The armor glistened under the lights. The throne imagery screamed comic accuracy. The glowing green eyes promised danger, and the crowd inside that Chinese expo roared with excitement. To the audience, this was the future of Marvel, but to Chris Evans, it was something very different. He stood back and felt nothing but anger, because behind all the flashing lights and the promises of greatness, he saw another desperate attempt to cover the cracks that had already torn the Marvel empire apart.
Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom reshoot situation that caused another actor to speak up, become very vocal, and it led to a confrontation on the set of Avengers Doomsday.
For over a decade, Evans carried the shield. He was the golden soldier, the clean-cut hero, the face of loyalty and sacrifice. Yet when the time came to honor that legacy, Disney didn't see him as a partner, they saw him as a gimmick, a marketing prop, a man whose career could be toyed with for the sake of hype. In that moment, Avengers Doomsday was not a celebration for him, it was a final insult. The studio had belittled his part, they had mocked his dedication, and worst of all, they had cut off the respect and value that he had earned. To Evans, Doom was not the savior of Marvel, it was the symbol of everything broken, and the reason he finally chose to walk away from Disney forever.
It's sad to be away. It's sad to not be back with the band, but, I'm sure they're doing something incredible, and I'm sure it's going to be that much harder when it comes out, and you feel like, you weren't invited to the party.
Captain America Brave New World suffering massive drops and losing money, Thunderbolts losing millions despite great reviews, and Fantastic Four First Steps collapsing at the box office. Marvel need a win.
Chris Evans was never supposed to be Captain America, at least not in his own mind. When Marvel first offered him the role, he hesitated and drafted an actual pro and con list before signing. The positives were obvious: long-term financial stability, career security, the possibility of stepping into directing. But the negatives weighed heavier: a loss of anonymity, constant exposure to paparazzi, the fear of being permanently trapped inside a role that would never let him go. Evans admitted he loved being able to walk down the street, go to a ball game, enjoy life without cameras in his face. He knew that once he put on the stars and stripes, there would be no off switch, no escape from the spotlight. Still, he said yes, and in that choice, Marvel gained its golden soldier. From 2011's First Avenger to 2019's Endgame, Evans became the beating heart of Marvel's empire. Every film, every appearance, every shield throw carried the weight of his decision. But what fans didn't see was the contract that held him hostage, a 6-picture deal with Disney that stretched over a decade, leaving almost no room for retreat. The fears he wrote down on that list started to come true. His freedom was shrinking, his privacy was gone, and his creative voice was slowly buried under Marvel's machine. The seeds of his eventual rebellion were planted right there in the beginning, long before Avengers Doomsday ever appeared on the horizon.
It was a couple hours a day, and it was brutal. The tricky part was eating. I have to eat like these just bland, naked pieces of chicken and rice, and it's not that appetizing, and you're just so full. It's pretty uncomfortable.
The Marvel method demanded more than acting skill. It demanded physical transformation at the cost of sanity. Evans went through hours of training every day just to sculpt himself into Steve Rogers. He forced down endless plates of bland chicken and rice until eating became torture. He admitted that the hardest part wasn't the gym, but the food. That feeling of being stuffed sick and uncomfortable every single day. And even when the movies were done, the burden never disappeared. Fans judged every change in his body, his beard, his weight, his face. If he looked bulked up, The rumors started. If he looked lean, the questions poured in. His entire identity was chained to the Captain America physique, and he could never escape it. That obsession reached a boiling point in 2024 at the Toronto Film Festival. Evans walked the red carpet with a clean-shaven face and a bulked-up frame, and instantly, the internet exploded. Headlines screamed that he was secretly filming Avengers Doomsday. Fans compared his look to his Steve Rogers days and pointed out he never shaved the beard unless Marvel told him to. They claimed even in Deadpool Wolverine, when he appeared as Human Torch, he wore a muscle suit just to avoid the endless gym cycles. But here he was, bulked up again, looking exactly like Captain America. For the public, it was proof he was back. But for Evans, it was a trap. Another reminder that no matter what he did, Disney controlled the narrative. The whispers turned into a storm. Online commentators dissected every photo of Evans at Toronto fans, zoomed in on his jawline, his muscles, his clean shave. They said this was his Steve Rogers look, and Avengers Doomsday was right around the corner. The Russo brothers poured fuel on the fire with cryptic posts teasing Doomsday is coming without ever mentioning Evans by name. To the fans, this was confirmation to Evans it was exploitation. When asked directly about Avengers Doomsday, he danced around the question. He said he was sad not to be back with the band, that it would be harder when the film came out, and he wasn't there. His words carried sorrow, but his body told another story. This tug of war defined his relationship with Marvel after Endgame. Grateful for the opportunities, but trapped by the chains of expectation. Every shaved beard, every bulked chest became a headline about his secret comeback. Disney didn't even need his consent. They used his image, his body, his silence as marketing tools. To Evans, the speculation wasn't harmless, it was suffocating. It was the first sign that what he once called a good run had become a cage. Disney had one goal with Avengers Doomsday, to weaponize nostalgia and pull audiences back into theaters no matter the cost. They didn't care about story or legacy, they cared about ticket sales, and the multiverse gave them the perfect excuse to recycle old heroes. For executives, Evans was a tool, a familiar face they could drop in for applause. But for Evans, Steve Rogers wasn't just a role, it was a complete Arc 1 that ended in Endgame with meaning and closure. Reopening that story felt like Betrayal. The studio wanted him to appear as multiverse variants, Captain Hydra, corrupted versions of the hero audiences had trusted for 10 years. To Evans, this was not creative exploration, it was mockery. He had spoken before about protecting characters he loved and respecting what they stood for. Now Disney was asking him to twist that very legacy into a gimmick. It wasn't just disrespectful to him, it was disrespectful to the fans who believed in Steve Rogers' sacrifice. The deeper Evans pushed back, the harsher Disney became. Behind closed doors, reports claimed executives mocked his protectiveness. They laughed that he was too sentimental about Captain America, too serious about continuity. To them, he wasn't an artist with conviction, he was just an obstacle to be moved aside. They leaked photos of his physique to stoke rumors without his approval. They turned his beard, his muscles, his silence into free marketing. At the same time, Robert Downey Jr. was being celebrated for his triumphant return. Downey was praised as the heart of Marvel, while Evans was treated like baggage. The double standard was clear. Disney honored one legacy while ridiculing another. Evans saw exactly what was happening. The same studio that once called him indispensable now reduced him to a punchline. After a decade of loyalty, he was branded difficult, simply for asking that Steve Rogers' story be respected. That betrayal cut deeper than any contract dispute. Evans wasn't blind to history. He had seen what happened when other Marvel stars clashed with Disney. Scarlett Johansson sued over Black Widow's release strategy after Disney's streaming gamble cost her millions. The studio tried to paint her as greedy before quietly settling. Dave Bautista openly blasted Disney when they fired James Gunn, saying, flat out, he didn't want to work with them anymore. If a secondary actor like Bautista could risk everything by speaking out, then what did that mean for Evans, the man who carried the shield for a decade? He had more leverage than anyone, yet he also had more to lose. Instead of waging a public war, he chose silence. But that silence didn't protect him. Disney filled the void with rumors, leaks, and ridicule. Evans realized he was trapped in the same cycle that had broken others. The difference was, his name carried more weight, and his departure would shake Marvel to its core. The whispers of disrespect eventually turned into open wounds. Every interview Evans gave was picked apart, every word twisted into speculation, and every appearance spun into another Disney headline. But behind the curtain, the truth was harsher. Reports claimed that in creative meetings his concerns were dismissed outright, that executives told him the multiverse wipes everything clean, so continuity didn't matter. To Evans, that was the ultimate insult. 10 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice dismissed as a marketing trick. This was the moment when frustration hardened into finality. He wasn't just tired, he was done. The ridicule cut deeper than any physical burden he had endured. To be mocked for protecting a character who defined an entire generation felt unbearable. Rather than play along, Evans chose rebellion. He stepped back, not quietly, but decisively, making it clear to those close to him that his Marvel journey was finished. When the news broke, headlines screamed that Chris Evans had quit Disney. To fans, it felt like a betrayal of trust, not by him, but by the studio that drove him away. The shockwaves were immediate. Hashtags like "Thank you, Chris" trended worldwide, while "Boycott Disney" erupted across social media. Fans replayed his endgame farewell, lifting Mjolnir, whispering, "I can do this all day," and saying goodbye to Peggy Carter. These moments had been sacred, and now they were contrasted against leaked reports of executives mocking him behind closed doors. The contrast was devastating. Avengers Doomsday was supposed to be Marvel's grand event, their answer to falling box office numbers, their proof that the Empire was still alive. But without Evans, the film's nostalgic magic collapsed. Robert Downey Jr.'s return could not mask the absence of Captain America. Analysts called it a blow to the brand, a reminder that Disney's grip on its stars was slipping. For years, Marvel's formula thrived on loyalty, but that loyalty was broken. Chris Evans leaving was no longer just a career move, it was a symbol of a studio that had lost its soul. With Marvel behind him, Evans turned toward freedom. His contract was finished, and his choices were his own again. For the first time in more than a decade, he didn't have to bulk up for the shield or shave the beard for the cameras. He spoke about his love for smaller projects, films where intimacy mattered more than spectacle. Directing had always been his dream, and now nothing stood in his way. Disney tried to spin his retirement as amicable, praising his contributions in public while dismissing him in private. But fans saw through it. They remembered the Lightyear controversy, where Evans had stood his ground, calling critics idiots for opposing representation. That moment revealed who he truly was, a man willing to risk backlash for what he believed. Beyond Marvel and Pixar, he was carving a new legacy, one defined not by contracts and cameos, but by conviction and independence. For Evans, quitting Disney wasn't just a decision. It was a statement that no paycheck, no salary, no studio could ever buy back his integrity. Chris Evans walking away from Disney wasn't just the end of a contract, it was the end of Marvel's golden age. After a decade carrying the shield, he was cut off, mocked, and treated as disposable. Avengers Doomsday was meant to honor the legacy, but instead expose Disney's greed, turning heroes into marketing tools and replacing respect with gimmicks. Fans didn't side with the brand, they sided with Evans. His retirement became rebellion, proof that integrity can't be bought. By saying no, he showed the world that even Captain America wouldn't bow to exploitation. He left with dignity, while Disney was left with ruins. And that's why his words hit harder than any teaser. Fuck Avengers. Doomsday, Chris Evans is finished with Disney, and the Empire will never be the same.